If you've been watching the royal story closely over the past few years, then what is unfolding right now should not be ignored. What we are witnessing is not just another dramatic headline or fleeting royal disagreement. This is a moment where long-standing power structures are being tested in public, and the discomfort inside the royal establishment is becoming impossible to conceal. For months, the palace narrative has been carefully polished. Stability, calm, continuity. A sense that everything had returned to normal. The message was clear. The storm had passed, the institution had survived, and the cracks had been sealed. But that image shattered the moment Prince Harry stepped back onto British soil. His return did not bring nostalgia. It did not bring ceremonial warmth. It brought tension. And with that tension came panic behind closed doors. Almost immediately headlines appeared suggesting that a new divide had opened between Prince Harry, Prince William and Catherine. But the real question is not whether there is a divide. The real question is who benefits from framing it that way. Because when you peel back the palace messaging and remove the familiar media spin, a far more unsettling truth emerges. Prince Harry is not causing disruption. He is exposing it. Harry did not return to the United Kingdom for pleasantries or reconciliation theatre. He did not return to wave from balconies or play the role expected of him. He returned for accountability. He returned to confront a system that has operated without consequences for decades. His legal case against the publishers associated with the Daily Mail is not a minor dispute. It is not about personal grievances or bruised egos. It is a direct challenge to a media culture that normalized intrusion, rewarded cruelty, and profited from the emotional exploitation of vulnerable people. At the heart of this case is something deeply disturbing: the alleged use of unlawful information gathering, phone hacking, invasions of privacy, manufactured stories, private conversations turned into public spectacle, and, most painfully of all, the emotional targeting of two young boys who were still processing the sudden violent loss of their mother. That is what makes this moment so uncomfortable for the palace. Because for generations, the monarchy survived by following a rigid philosophy. Never complain, never explain. On the surface, it sounded dignified. In reality, it meant silence at any cost. It meant protecting the institution even when individuals were harmed. It meant enduring abuse quietly so that the facade could remain intact. Prince Harry rejected that bargain. One of the most powerful aspects of his legal case involves a private conversation between Harry and his brother about their mother, Princess Diana. According to Harry, that deeply personal exchange was unlawfully accessed and later transformed into tabloid material. Pause and consider what that means. Two brothers, still children emotionally, still shaped by grief, trying to speak privately about a mother whose death they were forced to mourn in front of the entire world. And that moment that vulnerability was allegedly stolen and monetized. That is not journalism. That is exploitation. That is emotional violence disguised as public interest. And that is why this case rattles the palace. Because once you acknowledge that truth, the illusion of moral authority collapses. You can no longer pretend that the system was neutral. You can no longer claim that everyone was equally protected. You are forced to confront the reality that silence was not accidental, it was strategic. Now look at the optics surrounding Harry's court appearance. While he stood in a courtroom reliving some of the most painful chapters of his life, the rest of the royal leadership was notably absent. Official engagements appeared elsewhere: Scotland, the West Country, carefully planned distance. This was not coincidence. It was communication. It was the institution signaling that it would not stand beside him. And in doing so, it revealed far more than it intended. Because when someone speaks openly inside a system built on suppression, avoidance becomes the default defense. Estrangement does not happen overnight. It is not born from one argument or one decision. It grows slowly, fed by silence, unresolved trauma, unspoken resentment, and repeated betrayals. Harry has spoken openly about how life inside the palace affected his mental health. He has described anxiety, panic attacks, emotional breakdowns, and isolation. These were not passing struggles. They were warning signs. And when Meghan entered his life, those pressures intensified, because suddenly the cost of silence was no longer personal. It became dangerous. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, became the lightning rod for everything the establishment was unwilling to confront. She was confident, she was articulate, she was modern, she was biracial, she was American, and she refused to make herself smaller to fit an outdated mold. The media response was relentless. Headlines dripped with hostility, narratives were twisted, smears were normalized, and once again the palace response was silence. No protection, no correction, no visible support. Harry watched history repeat itself. He watched his wife endure the same kind of psychological pressure that had consumed his mother. And that was the line he refused to let be crossed again. This is where comparisons become unavoidable. On one side, you have a palace culture rooted in hierarchy, emotional restraint, and public image management. A system dependent on controlled leaks and selective outrage. On the other side, you have a life built elsewhere. In California, in relative peace, in autonomy, in healing. Harry and Meghan did not simply step away from royal duties. They exited a structure that was actively harming them. And the most uncomfortable truth of all is this: they are thriving. They are financially independent. They are raising their children away from constant surveillance. They are engaged in work driven by purpose, not protocol. They are visibly healthier. And that reality terrifies royal traditionalists, because it proves something the institution has never wanted people to believe. You can leave, you can survive, and you can succeed. This legal battle is historic precisely because of what it threatens to expose. Not just individual wrongdoing, but a network. A relationship between powerful media outlets and palace insiders. A machinery designed to shape narratives, protect certain figures, and sacrifice others when necessary. If Harry succeeds, the consequences extend far beyond his own case. Other victims will feel empowered to speak. Other lawsuits will follow. The press will be forced to answer questions it has avoided for decades. That is why this case is not merely legal, it is revolutionary. For centuries, the monarchy controlled its image through access, rewarding compliance, punishing defiance. Harry shattered that control, and once control is lost, authority weakens. That is why he is labelled difficult. That is why he is framed as disloyal. That is why his actions are personalized instead of examined structurally. But history tends to be kinder to those who tell the truth early. This story has never been about competition between brothers. It has always been about unresolved trauma. Two children forced to walk behind their mother's coffin. Two boys denied private grief. Two men shaped by the same loss. Only one chose to break the cycle. Harry chose therapy. Harry chose emotional honesty. Harry chose vulnerability. Harry chose his family over an institution. And in doing so, he gained something priceless: a loving marriage. Two children raised with intention. Work aligned with values. Freedom from constant fear. That is not failure. That is growth. Critics claim Harry is obsessed with the past, but seeking justice is not obsession. It is accountability, and accountability is how societies evolve. His legacy will not be defined by titles or ceremonies. It will be defined by exposure, by courage, by standing against media abuse, by defending mental health, by choosing love over tradition. Harry and Meghan represent something profoundly disruptive to old power structures. Choice. The choice to walk away. The choice to protect your family. The choice to heal. The choice to speak. And that is why their story resonates far beyond royal watchers. Because it's not just about crowns and castles, it's about human dignity. If you believe in truth, justice, and challenging systems that thrive on silence, then this is the space for you. Make sure you're subscribed for more fearless, honest, royal commentary that refuses to sanitize reality. And if you support independent voices willing to say what mainstream media avoids, consider supporting the channel through Super Thanks. Every contribution helps keep this platform strong, growing, and unapologetically truthful. Every like matters. Every comment matters. Every share amplifies the message. Together, we stand for truth. Together, we stand for accountability. Together, we stand with Harry and Meghan.